Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 2, The Nucleus of Society, the Family. I'm using a different mic setup today, so hopefully the audio will be better. I'm working on getting a better mic, but hopefully you can bear with me in the meantime. So, one of the best ways to solve any problem is to get to the root of the problem, to the foundations of it. And throughout history, that has been the family. The family is the bedrock of all society, and everything that the family does trickles upwards or downwards, I guess, depending on where you place it or how you place it in which order. But the family always comes first and affects everything else. And you can see this if we look through history. All the great empires had strong moral foundations at the beginning, which led to their rise. And that included strong families. They had pride in themselves, they had pride in their country, they were religious. Early on, empires were not Christian, but they they had a religion that they adhered to. They had a set of morals that they adhered to. And it wasn't until later, as those morals and the religion or the religious aspect of it faded away, that's when they all started to crumble. And you can go back through all of the empires, but just some of the more well-known ones. Rome is a great example. They came from nothing and then conquered almost all of the known world at the time. And at the beginning, they were very focused on their country. They adhered to their religion and their set of morals, and the families were the nucleus of that. But as time went on, they fell into all the vices that we as human beings seem to fall into each and every time. Um, the the practice of homosexuality became rampant. Abortions became more acceptable, although to what extent I'm not completely sure. In Rome, I know that it happened. I just don't know how often. Divorce rates rose. There was much less pride in family and country, so therefore it was easier to do things that uh, looked bad, I guess, without having the stigma of ruining your family name. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that happened in Rome. Pedophilia was one, which we kind of seem to be headed towards potentially here in the United States. Needless to say, Rome destroyed itself from within. Its decadence and lack of religion, its acceptance of all things immoral and soft, led it to be conquered from without. England, France, Spain, all three of those followed similar patterns. Um, through, different different time period, different norms. Christianity was already there, was a factor in each one of them, and in each case, they disregarded it, they ditched it, and led lifestyles at odds with it. In each case, they they were full of immorality, especially in the courts. Um, Greed, avarice, promiscuity. I'm not sure to what extent homosexuality may have been present there. I don't think, in my reading, I haven't come across it much. But all the other vices and sins were there, and each one of those empires ended up bankrupt and gone. So, what does the church say about the family? I found this quote that the family is the first natural society with underived rights that are proper to it and places it at the center of social life. Number 211 in the Church Document Compendium. Um, I think this is important as the church places the family at the center of secular society, and that the parents are the educators of their children, that they receive special graces to to educate their children, especially in the faith, and it's the parental duty to make sure that the children are properly formed. The parents are the first ones to expose the children to what is moral, what is right, what is wrong, to introduce them to Christ, to the church, to the teachings of the church, what it means to have respect, dignity, to give them role models, examples of how to live, to instill a form of pride in the family, in your culture, and in your country. And the church, I looked it up in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. It's listed under the fourth commandment, and it enumerates all sorts of responsibilities of the parents to their children and vice versa. So the church is obviously very big on family. The founding fathers, when it comes to the political sphere or to the founding of our country, they didn't have much to say about family, but they didn't really need to at the time. The family was not under attack and was largely considered normal. It was the normal state of things to have a mother, a father, and children. There was no push to do anything otherwise. Um, that's not to say that the founding fathers weren't sinful men in and of themselves, but the understanding of the times, just like we go back to with the amendments and the Constitution, what was their intent, what was intended when they wrote it, what was covered when they wrote it, and how it applies today. They didn't see a need to mandate the role of family or to seriously talk about it because it was just there. It was a given. They did ban polygamy, further pointing back to their view of traditional marriage. Divorce was only for extreme circumstances. It wasn't like today where you can decide one day that you're just not going to be married anymore for any reason whatsoever. So the founders were assuming that the family would be the center for everything, and that from there you would have new citizens born, raised, and then they would go on to be the future leaders. So why is the solid family necessary for our country? Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other, says John Adams. So I think we need to think about that. Um, are we a moral people? Are we a religious people? On the whole, we are not. We kill millions of babies in abortion. We've legalized and many attempt to normalize that. We've pushed for gender fluidity, transgenderism, homosexuality. We've taken God and religion out of everything we can and cancel it. So I would say we are far cry away from a moral and religious people as a whole. So what our founders assumed was that that wouldn't happen to us, or that we would fight to prevent that, knowing that this was the case, that what they gave us, what this experiment was for a moral and religious people. So we are seeing the failure of the government because of who we have become. That being said, again, it starts with the family. If the family doesn't raise the children right, it makes it that much harder for the children to grow into the adults that they were meant to be. We're counting, in a broken family or tough circumstances where the parents aren't present or don't teach them. You're counting on an intervention by God to bring them around eventually. But ideally, that wouldn't be the case. So, like we had talked about before, morality and religion are taught, responsibility and accountability are taught, morals are instilled. Greed is tough to have in a family when you, especially if you have a large family, you're more likely to achieve more virtues and be taught more virtues. And that leads to all sorts of positives as you grow older. You grow in virtue, and that virtue helps you to lead and serve well and in the image of Christ. So how can we fix this? Just a couple quick thoughts as we're running out of time here. The first is live within your means. This allows the man to work and provide well for his family. Ideally, that allows him to do so without having to work all hours of the day and night, so he can be present for his wife and his kids. It allows the wife to stay home or to not work, to be able to take care of the kids, or to allow the wife to work in a way that doesn't hurt the kids. Sometimes if you have both parents working, the children can get neglected, and you also rely on other people then to raise your kids, and that's not always the best case scenario. In my opinion, the next thing is homeschool. I know that this is a hard thing for some people, especially if you don't feel like you're qualified or you didn't have a good education yourself. It's an extreme sacrifice, especially for if it's the wife who's doing the homeschooling. That's a big project. But you then control what your kids are being taught. You can make sure that they learn real history, real life lessons, things that will make them successful, things that will make them better people, and will help them to guide others in the future. You're not having them brainwashed by the liberal teachers and affected by the things of the world as much. Another thing I think is important that's been lost is to install family pride. I think this may just be the traditional or love of traditionalist in me, traditionalism, can't talk today. But I think one of the worst things that happened was the loss of family crests. Not because of the artistry or just because of the history, but it inspired people or members of the family to not do anything that would sully the family name. You didn't want your family's name or crest associated with your mistakes. And I think that could help in today where it seems like so many of the kids that I used to know and have seen, they didn't have much pride in their name or in the family history. So they were more willing to do things that maybe they wouldn't if they thought that could follow them around forever or for generations. So installing family pride, maybe your family doesn't have a crest now, but make one and make the family name mean something, make the crest mean something, and it gives the kids something to hold on to look up to. Control the outside influences. Don't let your kids have phones, iPads, laptops, whatever. Control their access to the internet so that you know what they're doing, when they're doing it, who they're spending time with. Um, as wonderful as the internet can be, it also has its downfalls. Um, but this also goes to where your kids go, who your kids hang out with. Control those, and don't hide in a hole, but make sure that your kids aren't being inundated with all the garbage that's out there today. Movies, music, all that stuff. And to me, another thing is the encouragement for love of good reading. That's one of the greatest gifts that my parents and a couple of my uncles gave me, was encouragement and just the pure joy of a good book. And there are plenty of good books, and I hope to do some videos on or reviews of those in the future to share some of what would now be called older literature. Now that it's tough to say that stuff I was reading is now considered older, but good, clean books that are enjoyable. And there's so much that you can learn from reading that you might miss even if you're going to a good school. I learned more from some of the books that I read than I learned from entire classes. And my love of history and my understanding of politics and the founders, all of that came through reading. So I think that's really important. So I will stop talking now and wrap this up as it's been so long. Thanks for listening. I hope you found some of this helpful. I will try and have another video out next week, next Friday, and hopefully I'll have a new mic soon so that I can fix this audio and make it a little less annoying to listen to. Thanks for bearing with me. God bless, and I'll talk to you next time.